Hello everybody, my name is Manues and welcome back to another Eternal Contender series today with an update on my trusty old scrap metal Kalis deck. So a couple of things have changed since last time. First of all, the meta game changed quite a bit, I'll get into that a bit, and also the deck got one really great upgrade in Quarry. As some people out there might know that I have experimented with Scheme for a while, but the card is just like kind of slow and clunky. It kind of does what the deck wants, but it still like was really slow and caused a bunch of trouble and wasn't that great. And Quarry is basically everything the deck wants. Like the one cost reduction is really great on a lot of cards, on parts of the Madness combo, on Stash, even on Kalis, or just on like the cheap early stuff, like for example having a 0 power torch can be really beneficial, or just on turn 2 hitting one of the 1-drop units, getting to play them for free is really nice, for example. So the card just does a lot for the deck in that regard already, and it also adds a lot of consistency and some card selection that makes it more likely to have what you need and find what you're already missing, what you're still missing, which is great. Especially in a deck that has a lot of like 2-card combos where you really, if you have a Madness for example, want to find a way to sacrifice the unit that you're madnessing and stuff like that. And reducing Madness to 2 with Quarry is also really great, for example. Alright, so basically the core of the deck is still the same: 4 Combust, 4 Grenadin Drone, 4 Slumbering Stone, 4 Torch, 4 Dark Wisp, 4 Devour, 4 Vara's Favor, 4 Assembly Line, 4 Kalis. I went up to 4 Madness. Like in my old list I only had 2, which was definitely wrong. I quickly went up to 3, and by now, especially with Quarry, I think 4 is definitely the right number. The card is really powerful with all the sacrifice effects. Also madnessing something and then sacrificing it makes Stash better, since Stash only gets back like weak units from the deck itself. So it's mostly like a way to get back Kalis in the mid to late game, and maybe like some of the 1-drops a lot of the time, or just like Wisp to cycle, but nothing impressive basically. And the Madness combo often gets us like a good stash target in the void from the enemy, which is really nice. Getting their like best unit to stash back. And still 4 Torrent of Spiders, one of the core win conditions alongside Kalis, and the 2 stash. So basically all that happened is the bad kind of filler 4-drops or schemes, depending on what people were running, are gone for Quarry to make the deck more consistent and streamlined and efficient. So let me quickly go over a couple things. Like, I still think all these cards are like very essential, and the deck just basically wants to be all 4-ofs. I mean, I could still see a low amount of scheme if I would have place, if I would have like room for it. But the problem is there's just not really any room, and scheme is not that great either. But having some more selection in like longer games could be nice. For a bit I tried not running Slumbering Stone, like some people did and suggested. Like, I think X-Line and Jabo tried that for a while, but I just didn't like it. Like, I didn't like how little units the deck had for Kalis and for Stash, since Slumbering Stone is actually one of the better things to get back with Stash. How little units it had to reliably like Combust and Devour early on, especially without losing a lot of value, since Slumbering Stone and Devour is actually pretty nice. And also the Slumbering Stone Gargoyle has nice utility with Kalis, protecting Kalis from like small units, and just providing like a nice pressure unit. Like, I had plenty of games where I just kept attacking for 2 a turn with Slumbering Stone's Gargoyle, chipping away at the opponent's life total slowly while controlling their board with all the removal and stuff the deck has. So yeah, they played stuff like Suffocate in the slot, but the card is just so situational. There's like even some decks where it doesn't do a whole lot. Then there's the situations where the opponent has a unit but not a unit you can suffocate and stuff like that. And Slumbering Stone just does a lot more overall, I think, in the deck. Also, you want enough units in the void for Torrent of Spiders, and over time Slumbering Stone provides 2 units, since it kind of dies, and then eventually the Gargoyle dies as well, so it provides the same amount of units as Drone for Torrent, making sure the Torrent is big enough in time, which is great. And yeah, basically currently not running the one Amethyst Monument that I used to run, which gets a lot better without, a lot worse without Maiden, and it was kind of borderline anyway, and I rather just went up to 7 Fire Sigils, since Grenadin Drone is the 1-drop. You want to be more likely casting, like playing on turn 1 than Slumbering Stones, so I rather have a little more fire for Drone. Other than that, the deck is pretty evenly distributed. Sure, it might look a little shadow heavy here, but in the end everything is 1 cost, and Vara's Favor provides for extra shadow, so ultimately well, that doesn't really matter since you need the first shadow, and the first shadow fixes everything. But yeah, anyway, I rather have like 1 more fire usually for the turn 1 drones, but it might be wrong. Maybe it should be another shadow, simply because the deck is a bit heavier on shadow. And the Vara's Favors hitting more likely. Actually, I think the more I think about it, it should probably be another shadow. I haven't like thought about it that way. I mostly just looked at maximizing the 1-drop that I want to be playing on turn 1 more likely, but that deck doesn't care about it as much anyway, and operates better on mono shadow than in mono fire usually, since mono shadow lets you hit more power drops, lets you draw more cards to finally hit the second color, and also has a 1-drop. But yeah, all in all, I mean, the deck needs both colors to function, but has a higher chance of hitting fire when it has shadow than it has hitting shadow when it has fire, because fire has no card draw because it doesn't have Dark Wisp and Devour, which can help you find your fire influence. So that's probably a minor change that's better. Could still be that this 1 Shadow Sigil could be a monument even without the cudgels. It is still decent to have like an extra unit when we're flooding out a bit, and also having something to lifesteal. So I might try that again, but I'm not sure how much I'm gonna like it. And yeah, other than that, the deck is basically the same as before. You can find the old video series where I explain some things that haven't changed more in depth, because I'm not gonna like explain the stuff that I explained in the first video all over again. I'm gonna link to it up here. You can find it easily and watch the entire old video series if you don't know it yet. And yeah, the deck has been doing really well for me. I made it from like lower Diamond 2 to Masters with a whooping 29-13 record. Deck feels really great right now. It's seems like incredibly favored against other Stonescar decks, especially Burn Queen. I think I'm like 10-1 or something against Burn Queen on ladder. Matchup feels like almost impossible to lose. I think the 1 loss was like a non-game where I just didn't do anything and would have lost to pretty much anything. And other than that, the deck just has been crushing Burn Queen left and right. And there's still a ton of Burn Queen. It's the deck I faced the most. Decks like Armory are also pretty good matchups, because stuff like Torrent of Spiders and Big Kalis are a big problem for them, especially early on. And they don't have a lot of recourse against these things. And their weapons are pretty inefficient against these random 1/1 tokens, so that's pretty great. And yeah, the deck overall just seems really well positioned. Jido is another matchup that is really nice, since we are really good at trading with all their stuff, since we match all their multi-unit makers with ours, and then we have some grindy stuff and removal to go over the top of what they are doing. And yeah, I mean, as I said, 29-13, currently in like the top 15. In Masters I got in at like 18s and made it up to like 13th I think currently. And yeah, the deck just feels incredibly powerful and well positioned right now, and has been outperforming anything else that I've touched so far, even my Stonescar mid-range deck, which is really good and well rounded and is running around 60-ish%. But this deck has just been crushing it at close to 70% and feeling like, yeah, way outclassing an outplaying and overpowering what my opponents are doing in the majority of games, and just feels like, yeah, I can hardly lose. While the deck requires but keep in mind the deck requires quite some skill and patience and discipline, since the games go very long and you just have to like use your resources very deliberately and don't just like throw them away on the first thing in sight, and just plan for like the long haul, and then you'll usually end up victorious because the deck grinds really well. And yeah, that's it for the deck techs. As usual, I'll play 6 games with the deck at top 15 masters over 2 videos, as you're already used to. And so stay tuned for the first half of the games in a moment. Thanks for watching.